Welcome back once again, and this time formation flying part number 3, and this time a little bit about the practical flying a little bit more. Remember, at the end of the game, in the last presentation, we're going to stitch it all together. So this is the third part. If you've missed part 2 and part 1, first go and watch them, all right? Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit be the wrong way around. Okay, the formation practical, we're going to look at the takeoff, the landing, slipstream, joining the formation, changing formation, formation turns, power management, and tips. Wow, that is a mouthful. So this presentation will probably be a little bit longer than the rest. However, I'm not scared of this. Let's carry on. First of all, how's the takeoffs managed? Depending on the wind, the lineup on the runway, as well as the landings are alternated. All right, so what we do is, note here the wind is coming from this direction, okay? It means that the slipstream is blowing that way. Okay, so lead is in the downwind so that his slipstream slips away, and number 3 is then rear of him. Number 2 is here, but remember now between 2 and 3, there could be interference. So we must, depending on, you know, the angle of the wind and how strong it is, you will really have to make sure that you can assess the situation. Because the worst thing that can happen to you is during the takeoff run, where the slipstream of number 1 starts hitting you, it will just right throw you out there. And I've seen many guys after takeoff, and they do this. You'll see at your shows, the guys take off, and then immediately he will move out because he doesn't want to be in the slipstream. And at low speeds, the crosswind, that is one of the dangers. All right, but this is then how we are supposed to do it. I'm just going to clear that there. And then let's say lead always line up on the downwind side of the runway, and the rest alternate. Okay. No big deal about that. That makes sense. Slipstream. Okay. You know about the slipstream thing. It's not that you don't know what it is. But here I've just got a visual about the slipstream. So there's a little bit of an area here. But if you are at the same height, if these two aircraft are exactly at the same height, lead's slipstream and everything will wash over the number 2. So you'll always see that the number 2 is lower. Let me just turn just like it. No, let's just go like this. Number 2 will be lower. And the slipstream will now go over him. And you'll see if you add up like that, it'll feel like you go into a high vibration area. If it's the same size aircraft, not too much of a problem. Obviously, if it's a much bigger aircraft that's in front of you, that can put you upside down. So be very careful not to get into the slipstreams. Okay, not right. I didn't want to scare you entirely about with this one, but so let's go on. Let's just look at it. So there is this a slipstream there. The slipstream is there. So you can see there is the step down that we are talking about. Oh, okay. Now remember, what does it look like when you've got a helicopter? Okay. Let's see. There you've got a helicopter, number 1, there, and this is the pattern. So number 2 is then above him, there, and this is his pattern. And number 3 is then above him, and this is his pattern. So whether it's line astern, whether it is Vic formation, whether it's line abreast, a helicopter, you always step up. In a high wing, you cannot step down here. So in Vic formation, you've got to step up, because remember, these wings are now high. So no, I haven't got a high wing yet. I'll turn this one around. Now it's a high wing. And if you step down, the wings are normally more to the front. Okay, I haven't got the Cessnas and stuff here now. Believe me, that when you're sitting in the formation, in the Vic formation, if you've got a high wing aircraft, you've got to step up, otherwise you can't see number 1. If you go line abreast, you can maybe have less of a step up, you can even get to the same level, but not in the Vic. In the Vic, there's a step up. But in the line astern, step down, because normally there's not wing in front of you, and you can see through the glass here, and you can look up to the tail of the aircraft just in front of you. Okay. Right. So the difference between a helicopter and a high wing, fixed wing, is only that in line astern, the aircraft will still step down, and the helicopters will maintain a step up. Okay. Right. Now that we've said all of that, joining a formation. Let's look at that. Lead must accelerate smoothly after set heading around a kilometer or so. Lead settles cruising speed and power setting as agreed. Please, don't just take it that lead can now put cruise and everybody will catch up. I can promise you now, if, let's just talk a little bit of inches now. If, let's say, the cruising is done at 24 inches and let's say 2,000 RPM or 1,900 or 850, whatever the case might be, if that is the cruise setting that lead is going to, he will have to come back on those inches. Quite considerably, by the way. 20 inches, 21 inches, round about there. Because number 2 and number 3 and 4 and all of them, they need that spare power to catch up, to stay in position, and to climb up, and they've got a descent, and once you roll out from that descending, they need to add power again. So the power margin for those that are sitting on lead must be big enough, otherwise there's no way that they can stay in position. I don't know, Matt, how good you are. No matter. Energy is required, and you need excess power. So it is not strange to say to lead, give me another inch. Okay, all right. Formation intervals may ask lead to reduce power, blah, blah, blah. Number 2 the shortest route to join the position. Number 3 and the rest will always ensure that they have the smaller formation line numbers in sight. Okay, so what we're saying is, and we're going to go through the procedure, if the aircraft are here and you've got to go, let's say, into the number 2 position, these guys will go in, move into the number 2 position, and then the next guy will come and move into number 3 position, whatever the case might be. So there is a sequence, but you'll always take the shortest route. So if you take off and you turn out to the left, the others can do a shortcut here. Because turn radius makes a huge difference on the kinetic differences between the 2 aircraft. The guys that are behind, if you cut a corner, man, you're going to catch up that lead super quick. But number 3 cannot take the shortcut, and then number 2 also wants to take a shortcut. Let's keep it nice, okay? Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and so on and so forth. All right, let me just go there. Joining into position must be executed in phases. For joining in Vic, first place, left, right, then for aft, and I'm going to show you the pictures now. For joining line astern, I said there, first space, left, right, then forward, and. So let's just look a little bit here. And here I've got the Vic and the, line abreast would be basically the same joining way. First of all, number 2 comes here. Number 1 was airborne, and number 2 now ends up. He wants to join into the number 2 position. Now the 2 position is there. So you fly to get into that position, and you always, okay, look me in the eyes, you never go directly into a position. Yeah, I know you've done it a million times, so you can, okay, you can. But we do not teach people that way. We first sort out this lead, you slot in, and then if you overshoot, you will miss lead. You won't hit lead, okay? And so you go in there, stop, and then you go forward. And that is what we're saying here. You first move into that position, and then you move up. And now you've established there as a single element. 1 and 2 is in position. All right. And then obviously number 3 come in, and we'll do a lot of these. And eventually in the 5th presentation, we're going to use I think we've got a 4-ship that we're going to use, and then we'll show how all of them come in as well. Okay, first point, whether it's line abreast or not, because remember from here, line abreast is just moving more forward until you line abreast the aircraft there. So it's into Vic number 2 and line abreast number 2, same story. First in, then forward. Lateral, then fore aft. Okay. Line astern. Now we say joining a line astern. Normally what we do is we first go past him, then we go forward, and then we go in. We don't go directly there or too far to the rear, because then there is a huge possibility that you can misjudge the momentum. Listen now. It doesn't matter how good you think you are. If you haven't experienced the momentums and the power settings and the small movements and stuff like that, hold your opinions to yourself after you've flown this. The things that I'm saying here are the things that I was taught. Those are the things that we taught many guys. And those are the basic principles that we apply without thinking about that. So don't think we just fly randomly in positions. We do not fly randomly. We are very, very specific how we enter into a position. All right, here if you look from a Vic to line abreast, obviously that's just, you're already in the Vic position, you just move forward. That's not a big deal. From Vic to line astern. Okay. That's an easy one. Okay, so if we're in Vic, we've got a line astern, then we're just going to descend a little bit, make sure that we're below the slipstream, and then we're going to move in. That's it. So you're sitting here, you can go like this, you'll probably just duck a little bit in there, and then you sneak in, and you might be a little bit forward. You'll have to maybe fall back. It feels strange. Sometimes I feel like a fighter pilot when I do it. I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. It's not meant. This is the guy in a Vic position. He will go a little bit down and then move in to a line astern movement. Okay. Now, changing formation from, oh goodness, we've got that one. Now, changing formation, I wanted to press that little knob. Changing formation from box to echelon. Now, here we've got a 4-ship box, but we want to go in an echelon. Okay, whoa. You could put everybody in a Vic on the starboard side as well. More than one aircraft, one side, it's not really a Vic anymore. But the difference between a Vic formation and an echelon is the ability to turn. Now I'm going to just give it to you again. I'm going to put it like that. Just looking what you can see. Remember, this is the lead now. If lead turns this way, in a Vic formation, we turn like that. So this one's radius, and the one at the bottom will have a less radius. I think we're now happy with that. That's a Vic. But an echelon turn is like this. So if this is the lead and we turn right, then you can see that the lead have been blanked off. Number 2, in this case, or the second aircraft, cannot see the lead. So in an echelon turn, you can only turn away from the formation. Where in a Vic, you can turn left or right. Doesn't matter. Because there we do that, but if it's an echelon, we must stay on the same level in rollout. That's a difference. I wouldn't in the beginning too much, but the question is now, how do you move this in to move it in smoothly? Because if you take, and I'm not going to get into a fight about this one, these 2 aircraft has already formed an element, 1 and 2. They're sitting there. So if there is a starboard echelon, then these 2 aircraft must move out in there. The guy with the shortest route, number 4, is in the way of number 3. So number 3 cannot move in first. Number 4 first moves in, gets it in there. Now number 3 is cleared, slot in at the back. If you now reverse this whole story, then it's quite easy, because number 3 will then first go back to his position. Number 4 will go back to his position. These two to stay in position, and the end result will be that. Okay. So you've got to logically think this out, who's in whose way. So it's not always to say 1, 2, 3, 4 in a line. It might be 1, 2, 4, 3 when you change formations like that. Properly briefed, and people must understand the sequences that it makes logic. Must be safe. All right? Don't take things for granted. It must be briefed, and it must be in a safe manner. Power management. Okay, I've spoken about that. Left and right turns, left pivots around the lead. Now we talk here about line abreast and Vic formations, and those are actually the two. Line astern to a much lesser degree. Outside aircraft describes a larger circle. In addition, the outside aircraft has to fly and maintain a relative position. The inside is lower than the main relative position. Relates to power requirements, meaning that the outside aircraft will need to increase power and the inside aircraft reduce power. Once the aircraft is established in the turn, the power required in the outside aircraft will still be more than the one that's in the center, and it'll be more than the wire that's on the inside. The inside aircraft would therefore have to reduce power to facilitate. Okay. In the first two, I've spoken about this now quite a lot. Remember that if we look at the two aircraft here, and I'm just going to, the moment that we turn, and we turn the radius, this one actually stays at the same height. This one, if I just turn, has got to go that much up and turn there. This radius will be smaller than this radius. This radius will be bigger than the radius at the bottom. Okay. I'm sure that that makes a little bit more sense on this one here, where we would then say, lead stays the position, but here you can see the outside aircraft, a much bigger plane than the outside aircraft. Let me clean it so that we can see it once again. Lead, the height stays a constant. Outside aircraft sits at a higher, and so it's got to get energy to climb. It needs also energy to describe a bigger circle. The inside aircraft must reduce power because it's descending. You will say to me, but, okay. I'm getting so involved, I don't know whether I'm looking at you or where I'm looking. The point is, by now you should have it that the outside aircraft describes a higher or a greater circle, and that or bigger circle, and the outside aircraft is sitting higher. That's in a Vic or a line abreast turn. When it's an echelon, everybody's on the same, slightly bigger circles, but not such a big hoo-ha. But once you're in a Vic, and those are the basic formations that we get. The formation that you will fly most in your life will be a Vic and a line astern. Those are going to be the most. When you get into formation aerobatics, where the guy starts doing maneuvers, the Vic formation is where we all start off. The line astern, 1 or 2 aircraft, if you make more than one in line astern to a loop, it's not going to work. Number 3 will just not make it. Can, if it's got a stronger machine, obviously, and you'll see that you normally put your stronger machines in positions where they can, they can use that oomph to stay there. All right. There you can see number 2 is sitting higher than number 3. And you can see that the height of the lead and the one in the box basically the same. And here it says right turn, but this is actually left turn. I changed that for another briefing from the right to the left. Okay, so let's skip that one. But you understand what I'm saying. Here on the right turn, and here I've got the line abreast. Same idea. The outside aircraft will be much higher. The inside aircraft much lower. Smaller radius, normal radius, bigger radius. Okay, I think we probably have finished this one now. Line astern. This is straightforward. Starboard turn, and you'll just roll in, and everybody keeps that picture. If this is the lead sitting above you, number 2 sits here in his aircraft, and he just keeps up. And if it turns, he just turns with it up or down or whatever. You keep that relative position station. You cannot take your eyes off lead for a split second. You're going to lose the picture. And that's dangerous on the one side. And on the other side, if your error is to the less dangerous side, you lost your formation anyway. And to regain formation is very difficult. Man, if you're in there, you've got to stick to it. All right. Echelon turn. Here it was, remember the echelon, there would be slight step downs here, and you can see the step down, everything stays exactly the same. So this would be echelon starboard, but a port turn. It's a starboard echelon, but you can only turn port. Starboard, it's a starboard echelon, but you can only turn to the port side. Okay, I think said a lot about that. And then echelon, obviously the radius, basically the same, shouldn't be a problem. Okay, power management. During a rollout phase, oh, how did that happen? Let me just get that pen there. During the, yeah man, this is where we want to be now. During the rollout turn phase, the reverse will now be required. The preempt the power required. Preempt. In other words, the leader will set, here we're sitting, just going to do it this is lead, this is number 2. We're sitting in the turn, and lead says, cheetah formation, roll out, go, 2, 3, and it will change. And this one will descend. Okay, and now there's no more increased radius. So there will be a power change to do that, and then a slight power increase, because the fore-aft speed, the radius was bigger. So you need less power to have exactly the same radius, which will be now radius of 0. Okay? But you also got to descend. So the descent power that you reduced is actually that you'll have to add against once you're on your height. Think about that one. All right. But you know, if I say to you, cheetah formation, right turn, go, 2, 3, check. Man, if I'm sitting on the outside, I'm already giving the 1 or 2 inches here because I know I'm going to have to go up. Or if I know we're going to do to the inside, I'll already take an inch or what away and fit it in. But I keep this picture. And he says, roll out, go. Then I already whip on 2, 3 extra inches, get up to the level and reduce, let's say, 1 inch or 2 inches or whatever the case might be. All right, so think about that one. Where D decrees roll out go, instead of waiting for 2 counts to initiate the power setting, they envisage the power. The power actions is, in other words, anticipated. And that's all because of momentum. I mean, there's no direct response. You've got to feed it in. But you'll get used to it. But just think on that way. Always work from the known to the unways. Always seek, then work to the position. Whoa, listen carefully to what I'm saying here. Okay, here we're going with all that. Always seek a stable position and then work your way to the perfect position. So if you've lost something and it's not right, let's say you were flying there at number 2 and you're sitting here, first get yourself sorted out and then work yourself into the position. There we're going to go out, go a little bit back, come in, work yourself back to the position. Here we're going a little bit out, up, out, and forward. So you always stabilize, don't. If you get out, stabilize this thing that's not nice. Stable. Once it's stabilized, we work our way back and forward. Don't try and ride through your unstable movement at that moment in time. Later on, when you've got stacks and stacks of hours, this process will just be shortened. But I can tell you that is what all the guys do. They've got to go through stable, work back. It just takes much, much faster than in the beginning. But it doesn't mean that that process is not there. Now, this I've wanted, power changes must be small, even when loss is required, but then incrementally apply. The situation that we're sitting with a lot of times is, let's say this is the lead and this is Linus number 2 sitting at the back and he needs to come forward. He might be matching the speed, but he's not in position. So the power setting in matching is probably the same power setting if he was in here. But now he's got to go forward. It means he's got to accelerate. If he now takes a lot of power, he's got to accelerate, and then he's got to slow down, and there's a little bit of a problem. So you increase, see what is the rate of change. Increase, what is the rate of change. And now you wait for it. And then slowly back, because this, remember, you've got a relative increase, higher speed than lead, and you've got to bleed it off again. So you can't go, wow, a lot of power, and knock spine, and yeah, no. Little. Try and get your movements as smooth as you possibly can. It always works better that way. In the beginning, fly one dimension at a time, and then tackle. And that's what I've now said. You first do, the fore aft and then the lateral. Relative motion is what should be harnessed. Avoid slipstreams. Never lose sight of the lead. You cannot. The moment, if you're sitting next to lead, and let's say in this case you set too high and you blanked off to see lead, now you've got to just ease out, level off check. You can see him come back, fall back, in, come forward, and step in again. All right? Oh, well, it could be that we went up and now we're too close. We can't do this. We don't want to do this because, in a grand fashion. Remember, if the relative speed between the two aircraft is very low, ease her out. You don't have to whip her in and whip her out. There's no whipping in this thing. All right. Avoid the slipstream behind other aircraft, helicopters especially. Helicopters are high wing air vehicles and step up. And we've spoken about that quite considerably. The slipstream area immediately is not a very, very rough patch of air behind the air vehicle. The prop efficiency will immediately become less and you will fall behind. Man, that is so. And you will see that really in the Linus turn. If you're just slightly high, you will see the power doesn't work. And you're going to go in again. Again, if you feel that you're in the thing, ease it down. Don't bunt and get yourself into more trouble. The whole trick with formation flying is to be stable and make incremental changes to where you are and make small. If you've got a evasive action and it's now late and you've got a bunt, of course. I'm not saying that. In case of emergency, you can do a harder way from the lead if you're going to hit them. Technically speaking, that situation shouldn't really come because the relative speed between the aircraft should always be actually seriously low. Okay? So the energy differences, and so you don't have to whip it all over the place. Small movements. Deliberately and smoothly fly outside the slipstream area. Closer you are to the aircraft flight, the higher the slipstream. That's easy. I mean, you can sit really tight. You will see that in most of the advanced guys, they would sit literally a meter out and a meter down and a meter back. There will be a cubic meter between the two wings. And I've seen many a times where this happened. Now, if he breaks away, he's going to hit that aircraft. So if you're at the place, you've got to get it out and ease it out. You don't out because you're going to cut that wing. Yeah, I'm over him. Yeah. ease out. Here I'm underneath him. I can see that. All right, so you are stable. All you need to do is to ease out of that. Do not go into a flat panic. If you are now flying within 1 foot of the other guy, so you can make that 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, and so you can carry on. But don't try and whip it away like a mad, I wanted to say mad dog, but okay, that probably won't. Okay, tips on attaining and maintaining formation. Trim the best neutral position before joining. That is true. You know what the formation speed is going to be. As you get in here, match the speed, trim, do the final trims, and now you move in. Because one of the the big things is that eventually we start flying cross control. We get again in here, instead of keeping the wings in or out, we start flying cross control. Be very aware of the fact where your rudders must be. And if you feel that you cross control, just think it and level your wings. Fly with your wings in and fly with your wings out. I know that people say to you, yeah, but just do a little bit of yaw to get in and out. The problem with yaw to getting in and out, even if it's very minute maneuvers, means that you have unbalanced the aircraft and it might stay unbalanced. I'm not a big fan of that. I say small wing movements can bring a small in here. Not big movements, small movements. But the moment you start yawing, you can fall into that trough. Cross control flying is a natural phenomenon. It can only be corrected with balanced flight. Prior to that, get the feeling of how it should feel. Fly the position with small aileron, balance, but do not try to manipulate rudder only, or use rudder predominantly. If trim was set prior to joining the formation when speed and balance was correct, then you can rely on it. It'll be fine. Speed and attitude changes, direct changes normally is a short period, and additional trim should not be done. Okay, so now we're going to change formation. You're sitting at a higher, your speed is different. You're describing in a higher circle. You're not going to be in trim. So you don't trim in a turn anyway. So in the turns, there's going to be a trim. If we're going to climb, it's not, if you're going to do a cruise climb for 50 or 100 miles, I mean, why are you sitting in close formation anyway? Okay, so that will normally be, and then we level off. So you will fly against small forces, but it will be small forces. In formation aerobatics, what I normally did is I would have just a minute uptrim to help me, to make it easier on the pullouts. But if you make it a little bit of uptrim, the higher the pullouts, man, if you get sitting your nose lowering in the dive and you get 170 knots, I mean, you got to push to keep that thing there. So neutral trim is, that's still the best. Okay, so don't go and try tricks. Hand signals, not going to spend too much time on the hand signals, but here you can see there is a whole set of signals out on your hand signals, and I've just put them in here, not to necessarily goes up here, but things that we use is a thumbs up. Come on. Running up, raise forefinger extending upwards and revolving in a horizontal plane. Commence, chopping forward motions. That would be, we would sit in the aircraft and go, and 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, release brakes, and there we go. Flaps up, fuel check. I prefer that you speak to each other. If you're in close formation, use the radio. Number 4, cannot see these things. They can't. They've got to be in a reactive mode. But you will find these hand signals all over. You will find it on the internet. You'll find it anywhere. So yeah, climbing, descending, all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, as I say, that can only be seen. Now, if it's an aircraft that's tandem, the 2 and 3 will see the lead and his hand signals easy. But we're flying in a Cessna 172 or Cherokee 180. Man, the pilot is sitting on the left-hand or the right-hand side. So one of the elements is not going to really be able to see that well. So you can't lean over and say 1, 2, 3 here and 1, 2, 3 there. Don't do that. What I suggest is use your radio. All right. But know the simple signals. Fuel check, start up, climb, all that kind of stuff. Problems with my ear. Not good. Mic, bad. Cannot speak. All right. Oh yes, sorry. Sometimes you can't hear what the rest is saying. So then you will look to number 2, say, hey, something wrong. Look at number 3. Number 3 can speak to the rest of formation and say, you can say to the guy, okay, you, whatever side, let's say you, we're not talking now, we're showing him you on number 1, me, number 2. Okay? He acknowledges you, number 1, I am number 2. You are number 2. I am number 1. That's what he will say. And then you can change the formation position. Simple, straightforward signals, breaking the formation. But remember that I really, really, really do not advise you to even remotely go into this way. But if there is a transmission, if there's equipment failure, you can show somebody. Those are the basic signs that I think that we should need. Drinking moment and for fuel and stuff like that. If you just show there, you show to that guy, they will ease out a little bit, check the fuel, give you a thumbs up. That, for instance, can happen. Obviously, the people that can't see that, it ain't going to happen. Okay? So I don't advertise that we should use hand signals as a primary way of communicating in the beginning. What I do advocate is that the lead preferably must have 2 radios. The one in which he will be on the official radio, and he will be probably the only one that's on that radio. Maybe the rest can listen out on that. But he will primarily be on that radio and do all the communications. The other 2 can listen in on that radio, but the internal communication must be on a different, there must be preferably a formation frequency. So here we're flying in the Johannesburg special rules area. Not everybody wants to know number 2 is in, number 3 is out, come lower in the nose or whatever. It's not necessary. Number 1 will say special rules traffic, blah, 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 this is formation so-and-so, routing from here to there. And then on internally lead has got the ability, will click over and say, okay guys, I've just spoken, we're in here, there's traffic to the right, don't worry about it, I've got it. Okay? That's the whole idea. Lead, think. Do not make rapid movements. Number 2, number 3, the rest of the formation. There is a methodology to get into. Do not fly directly into. First fly where you can miss somebody and then stable and regain your position. Until, well, presentation 4. See you.